The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for miles, a structure built by beings who had mastered the stars for millions of years. Thousands of species gathered here, their forms ranging from clouds of sentient gas to towering crystalline giants. At the center of this vast assembly stood a single human woman in a simple gray suit. Ambassador Elena Vasquez held the datapad steady in her hands, though she wanted to throw it at the nearest alien face. Around her, the laughter continued. It started with the Kresh, the insectoid warriors whose chittering sounded like breaking glass. Then the Yaltheen joined in, their musical voices turning the mockery into a symphony. Soon the entire chamber echoed with the sound of 1,000 species laughing at humanity. 80 years, Elena said, her voice cutting through the noise. For 80 years, humanity has served this council faithfully. We have completed every assignment. We have paid every tribute. We have followed every law. Now we ask for what we have earned. Class 2 civilization status. The laughter grew louder. High Arbiter Thelnox rose from his throne, his 6 arms spreading wide in a gesture of dismissal. The Zinthros were ancient, their empire spanning 40,000 star systems. They had ruled the galactic core since before humans had learned to make fire. When Thelnox spoke, his voice boomed through translation devices in every language known to exist. Earned? The word dripped with contempt. You stumbled into faster-than-light travel by accident, a lucky discovery in your primitive experiments. You build ships from metal and plastic like children making toys. Your worlds are barely terraformed. Your population is scattered across a mere 200 planets. And you dare to speak of earning advancement? Elena's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. Our technology may differ from yours, but our contributions. A Kresh commander shot to his feet, his mandibles clicking with amusement. You mine asteroids. You transport cargo. You do the work that our machines find too simple. You are not advanced, human. You are convenient. More laughter. Elena looked around the chamber, seeing the same expression on 1,000 alien faces. Amusement, superiority, contempt. These beings saw humanity as primitives, as creatures barely worthy of notice. A Yaltheen philosopher floated forward, her gaseous form shimmering with colors that indicated deep thought. When she spoke, her words came out gentle, almost kind. That made them worse. Perhaps in another 1,000 years you will develop true understanding, she said. You see only 3 dimensions of space. You cannot perceive the quantum fields that we navigate. You are dimensionally blind, dear humans. How can we trust you with greater responsibility when you cannot even see the universe as it truly is? The phrase caught on immediately. Dimensionally blind apes, the Kresh commander repeated, and the chamber erupted in fresh laughter. Elena closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about the message waiting in her secure communicator. She thought about the facility hidden in a manufactured nebula, where the greatest secret in human history waited in silence. She thought about the words she wanted to say, the truth she wanted to shout at these arrogant creatures. Instead, she opened her eyes and smiled. Very well, she said quietly. The petition is withdrawn. Thelnox leaned forward, his multiple eyes focusing on her with satisfaction. A wise decision. Humanity will continue its current assignments. You will expand mining operations in the Outer Rim. The Kresh Empire requires more resources for their expansion, and you will provide them. Mining operations, Elena repeated, in Kresh territory. Yes, you should be honored. The Kresh have agreed to allow human settlements on 3 worlds in their space. Of course, you will operate under Kresh law, under Kresh authority. The High Arbiter's voice carried a clear message. Accept your place or lose even what little you have. Elena bowed her head, the perfect picture of a defeated diplomat. We will inform Earth of the Council's decision. As she turned to leave, Thelnox called out one more time. Ambassador Vasquez, remember this day. Remember that the Galactic Council sees all. We know what each species is capable of. We know your limitations. Accept them, and you may yet have a future among the stars. Elena stopped at the chamber door. She looked back over her shoulder, and for just a moment her smile changed. It became something colder, something dangerous. You measure us by what you can see, she said softly. That is your mistake. The words were too quiet for most of the chamber to hear. But Thelnox heard them. He dismissed them as the empty threat of a humiliated species, the desperate defiance of the weak. Elena walked through the massive corridors of the council station, her footsteps echoing on floors built before Earth had cooled from its formation. Other species passed her, some offering sympathetic looks, most ignoring her entirely. She made her way to the human diplomatic shuttle and sealed the door behind her. Only then did she allow herself to move quickly. She pulled out the secure communicator and entered a code that only 5 people in the galaxy knew. "Protocol Archimedes," she said clearly. "Initiate." The response came immediately, a voice she knew well. Dr. James Chen, head of DARPA's Dimensional Warfare Division. A man who had spent 30 years working on a project that officially did not exist. "Confirmed," Chen said. "How long do we have?" Elena thought about the Kresh commander's eager expression, the way Thelnox had assigned humanity to mining operations in hostile space. They were setting up a justification for conflict, creating a situation where humanity would be blamed for whatever came next. "Days," she said. "Maybe weeks. They're moving against us." "Then it's time," Chen replied. "Time to show them what dimensionally blind apes can do when they learn to open their eyes." Elena looked out the shuttle window at the massive council station, at the thousands of ships from species who thought themselves superior in every way. She thought about the vessel waiting in folded space, existing in dimensions these ancient empires had never even theorized about. "Yes," she said. "It's time they learned what happens when you underestimate humanity." The shuttle departed, carrying the ambassador back toward human space. Behind her, the Galactic Council continued its session, already forgetting about the primitive species they had just dismissed. They would remember soon enough. Prometheus Station existed in a place that most sensors would report as empty space. The manufactured nebula surrounding it was humanity's greatest feat of camouflage. A cloud of particles and electromagnetic interference that made the entire region appear worthless and dangerous. Any ship that came close would find their instruments going haywire, their navigation systems failing. They would turn away, never knowing what hid in the center. Dr. James Chen stood in the observation dome, watching the swirling colors of the nebula through reinforced glass. He had spent half his life in this place, working on a project that would either save humanity or drive them all insane. The message from Ambassador Vasquez had arrived 3 hours ago. "Protocol Archimedes." After 49 years of preparation, it was finally time. "Thinking about the beginning?" a voice asked behind him. Chen turned to see Captain Marcus Cole approaching. The captain was young for his position, only 42, but his eyes looked much older. They had the distant quality of someone who had seen things that human eyes were never meant to see. "Always," Chen replied. "Every time we're about to do something impossible, I think about that first accident. It had been 2298, 49 years ago. A quantum computing facility in Geneva had been running experiments on particle entanglement. The goal was simple: create a computer that could process information faster by linking particles across space. What they discovered instead changed everything. The lead researcher, Dr. Sarah Okonkwo, had been the first to see it. During a routine test, she noticed something strange in the data. Particles were not just entangled across space, they were entangled across something else, something that existing physics said should not exist. Chen remembered reading her report, the way her hands had shaken as she typed it. "We found a door," she wrote. "A door to dimensions beyond the 4 we know. And it's open." The discovery had been called the Kaluza-Klein breach, named after the physicists who had first theorized that extra dimensions might exist. But theory was one thing. Proof was another. Humanity had stumbled onto something that changed the fundamental rules of reality. "How many species know about higher dimensions?" Cole asked, following Chen's thoughts. "Most of them know the theory," Chen said. "The math exists in almost every advanced civilization's physics. But knowing something exists and being able to access it are very different things. The Zinthros have been in space for 3 million years. The Kresh for 500,000. None of them ever found the door we found." "Because they were looking outward," Cole said. "They mastered 3-dimensional space. They built ships that could cross galaxies. They never thought to look inward into the fabric of reality itself." Chen nodded. "While they were building bigger engines, we were learning to step outside the universe. While they were making faster weapons, we were learning to attack from angles that don't exist in normal space." The Veil project had begun immediately after the Kaluza-Klein breach. Every major government on Earth had contributed resources. The brightest minds in physics, engineering, and mathematics had been recruited. The goal was ambitious to the point of insanity: build a vessel that could exist partially in the 7th dimension, not the 4th dimension, which was time, not the 5th or 6th, which were theoretical constructs, the 7th dimension, a place where the laws of physics bent in ways that made conventional warfare obsolete. "Show me," Chen said quietly. Cole smiled. He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The lights in the observation dome dimmed, and space itself began to change. It started as a shimmer, like heat rising from summer pavement. Then the shimmer became a tear, a wound in reality that hurt to look at directly. Through that wound, something massive began to emerge. The TDSS Archimedes. Calling it a ship was like calling the sun a light bulb. The vessel was 3 miles long, but that measurement only applied to the parts that existed in 3-dimensional space. The rest of it extended into dimensions that human eyes could not properly perceive. When Chen tried to focus on its full shape, his vision blurred and his head began to ache. "Still gets me every time," Cole admitted. 20 years of working with her and she still looks wrong. "She looks impossible," Chen corrected. "Because she is. By every law of physics we understood before the breach, she cannot exist." The Archimedes floated there, simultaneously present and absent. Parts of her seemed to flicker in and out of existence. Other parts appeared to occupy the same space from multiple angles at once. Weapons batteries protruded from surfaces that curved in directions that should not exist. 200 crew, Cole said. Every one of them underwent neural augmentation. We had to rewire our brains just to perceive 7-dimensional space without going insane. Even now, half the crew needs medication to handle the sensory input. Chen had reviewed the medical files. The human brain was designed to process 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. Asking it to handle 3 additional dimensions was like asking a blind person to suddenly see colors that did not exist in the visible spectrum. The crew of the Archimedes had essentially become a new subspecies of humanity, their minds altered to perceive reality in ways that would drive normal people mad. "And the weapons?" Chen asked. Cole's expression became grim. "Reality anchors can lock a target into 3-dimensional space, making them unable to maneuver in ways they're used to. Dimensional shear weapons attack from angles that 3-dimensional shields cannot block. We can fire a projectile that moves through higher dimensions, passing through armor and shields as if they do not exist, then anchor it back into normal space inside the target. In simple terms, we can shoot through walls. We can appear behind enemy lines without traveling through the space in between. We can be in multiple places at once, and the enemy cannot hit what they cannot perceive." Chen thought about the Galactic Council, about High Arbiter Thelnox, and his contempt for humanity's primitive technology. He thought about the Kresh commander calling humans dimensionally blind apes. "They have no idea," he said softly. "None," Cole agreed. "Every species in the galaxy learned to conquer space. We learned to conquer reality. They built bigger hammers. We learned to build hammers that hit from directions they cannot see." "The Archimedes has been waiting for 23 years, Chen said, "hidden in folded space near the galactic core, waiting for the day we needed her." Cole nodded. "And that day has come. Ambassador Vasquez sent the signal. The Kresh are moving against our colonies. They think we're helpless. They think our defense fleet is all we have." Chen pulled up a holographic display. It showed New Haven, a human colony world in the Outer Rim. Population 50,000. Defense fleet 12 standard warships. Approaching Kresh fleet 300 ships. "It's not even a fair fight," Cole said bitterly. "They're going to slaughter those people just to prove they can." "Then we prove something else," Chen said. He entered a command code into the display. Across the station, alarms began to sound. Crew members raced to their positions. The Archimedes began to hum with power as her dimensional engines came online. "Captain Cole," Chen said formally, "you are authorized to engage. Show them what humanity has become." Cole saluted. "With pleasure, Doctor." As the captain left to board his impossible ship, Chen remained in the observation dome. He watched the Archimedes begin to fold back into higher dimensional space, disappearing from normal reality like a dream fading upon waking. Somewhere out there, the Kresh were about to learn a terrible lesson. They were about to discover that humanity had not been idle during their 80 years in galactic society. They had been preparing. They had been building. They had been learning to see what no other species had ever seen. The dimensionally blind apes were about to open their eyes, and the universe would never be the same. New Haven had been named by Optimus, The colony world orbited a gentle yellow star, its surface covered in rolling plains and shallow oceans. 50,000 humans had built their lives here over 20 years, farming the rich soil and raising children under alien skies. They had come here for peace, for a fresh start, for a future among the stars. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood on the bridge of the defense station, watching that future die. Kresh fleet has entered weapons range, her tactical officer reported. His voice was steady, professional, hiding the terror they all felt. 300 warships, we count 50 dreadnoughts, 100 cruisers, and 150 support craft. Sarah looked at her own fleet on the display. 12 ships, 12 human vessels, each one built for patrol and light defense. They were good ships crewed by brave people, but they were about to face an Empire's war fleet. All ships battle formation Delta, she ordered. Protect the evacuation transports for as long as possible. Below them, on New Haven's surface, transport ships were loading civilians. Women, children, elderly colonists who had thought they would die of old age on this peaceful world. Now they scrambled to escape, knowing that most of them would not make it. The Kresh fleet advanced like a swarm of metal insects. Their ships were designed for one purpose: overwhelming force. The insectoid warriors who crewed them had conquered 100 species. They did not negotiate. They did not show mercy. They consumed worlds and moved on. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said. It's their fleet, Commander. Put it through. The view screen filled with the nightmare face of a Kresh warrior. Commander Zixarak's mandibles clicked with anticipation, his compound eyes gleaming with cruel intelligence. When he spoke, his voice came through the translator as a harsh chittering sound. Human defenders, he said. Your council has assigned this world to Kresh authority. You will surrender immediately. All military personnel will be executed. All civilians will be processed for genetic harvesting. Resistance will result in orbital bombardment of all population centers. Sarah felt her stomach turn. Genetic harvesting. The Kresh bred other species like cattle, using them for labor and experimentation. She had seen the reports from worlds they had conquered. She had seen what they did to prisoners. This is Commander Sarah Mitchell of the New Haven Defense Force, she said, keeping her voice hard. We reject your authority. This world is protected by human law and Galactic Council treaty. Zixarak's laughter sounded like breaking glass. The Council gave us permission, little ape. Your ambassador begged for recognition and was denied. Your species has no power, no protection, no future. Surrender or die. Then we die, Sarah said simply. She cut the transmission. Her tactical officer looked at her with wide eyes. Commander? We die, Sarah repeated. But we die buying time for those transports. Every minute we hold is another 100 people who might escape. Ready all weapons. The Kresh fleet opened fire. Space filled with energy beams and missile trails. The human fleet scattered, their pilots performing evasive maneuvers that pushed their ships to the limit. They returned fire, targeting the Kresh support craft, trying to create chaos in the enemy formation. For 3 minutes, it almost worked. Human pilots were skilled, their tactics creative. They destroyed 6 Kresh vessels and damaged a dozen more. Then the dreadnoughts fired. The beams from the massive warships cut through human shields like paper. The destroyer Valiant exploded in a ball of plasma, her crew of 80 dying instantly. The cruiser Defiance lasted longer, her captain ramming his damaged ship into a Kresh dreadnought before both vessels tore apart. On the bridge, Sarah watched her fleet die. 10 ships, 8 ships, 5 ships. Her people were giving everything, sacrificing themselves without hesitation, and it was not enough. Kresh fleet is moving into bombardment position, the tactical officer reported. Tears ran down his face. They're targeting the cities. Sarah closed her eyes. Below them, in the cities of New Haven, mothers held their children. Fathers stood in the streets, looking up at the sky, knowing what was coming. People who had done nothing wrong, whose only crime was being human in a galaxy that saw them as prey. All remaining ships, Sarah said quietly. Full attack. Make them remember us. The last 4 human vessels charged the Kresh fleet. It was suicide, but it was defiant suicide. They would not go quietly. Then space tore open. It happened between one heartbeat and the next. A wound appeared in reality itself, a gash in the fabric of space that made every sensor on both fleets scream in confusion. Through that wound, something emerged. Sarah had never seen anything like it. The ship was massive, 3 miles of impossible geometry that hurt to look at directly. Parts of it seemed to exist in multiple places at once. Other parts flickered in and out of visibility. When she tried to focus on its full shape, her vision blurred and her head ached. "What is that?" her tactical officer whispered. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But it's broadcasting on human frequencies." A voice came through, calm and professional. "New Haven Defense Force, this is Captain Marcus Cole of the TDSS Archimedes. Stand down and withdraw to safe distance. We will handle the Kresh fleet, one ship. One impossible ship against 300 Kresh warships." "Archimedes, this is Commander Mitchell," Sarah said. "You're outnumbered 300 to 1. "Incorrect, Commander," Cole replied. His voice carried a hint of dark amusement. "They're outnumbered. They just don't know it yet." The Kresh fleet had stopped firing, their sensors unable to lock onto the strange vessel. Commander Zixarak's voice came through, confusion replacing his earlier confidence. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself. You are interfering with a sanctioned Kresh military operation." "This is Captain Marcus Cole of Earth's Dimensional Warfare Division," Cole said. "You have attacked human civilians without provocation. You have violated Galactic Council law. You have one chance to retreat." Zixarak's laughter returned, though it sounded less certain. "One ship? One strange ship against my fleet? You are insane, human." "Perhaps," Cole said quietly. "But we're the insane humans who learn to see what you cannot." The Archimedes deployed something. Sarah's sensors registered it as reality anchors, though she had no idea what that meant. 100 points of intense energy appeared around the Kresh fleet, forming a geometric pattern that enclosed their ships like a cage. Suddenly, half the Kresh fleet stopped moving. Their engines fired, their pilots screamed commands, but the ships remained frozen in space, locked in 3 dimensions, unable to maneuver in ways they had taken for granted. "What is happening?" Zixarak demanded. "What have you done?" "We've leveled the playing field," Cole replied. "Your ships can move in 3 dimensions. So can ours, but we can also move in 7. Let me demonstrate." The Archimedes vanished, not through any normal form of movement. It simply ceased to exist in one location and appeared in another, 300 miles away without crossing the space between. Then it fired. The weapons came from nowhere. Energy beams appeared inside Kresh shields, striking hulls directly. Missiles emerged from impossible angles, hitting ships from directions that should not exist. Projectiles passed through armor as if it were empty space, then materialized inside the target vessels, tearing them apart from within. The Kresh fleet tried to return fire. Energy beams passed through the space where the Archimedes was, but the ship existed in more dimensions than the weapons could reach. Missiles chased it, only to watch it step sideways through reality and disappear. Sarah watched in stunned silence. It was not a battle. It was an execution. Kresh ships exploded one after another. Dreadnoughts were cut in half by weapons they never saw coming. Cruisers were torn apart by projectiles that ignored their shields. Support craft tried to retreat, only to find the reality anchors had trapped them. Commander Zixarak's flagship lasted longer than the others. But when the Archimedes appeared directly beside it, passing through the shields as if they did not exist, even he understood that the battle was over. "Please," he transmitted, his earlier arrogance completely gone. "We surrender. We surrender." 7 minutes, Cole said coldly. "You attacked civilians. You threatened children. You called us dimensionally blind apes. 7 minutes was all it took to destroy your fleet. 100 ships eliminated. 0 human casualties." Sarah realized he was right. 7 minutes. The Kresh assault had lasted longer than the defense. "Return to your empire," Cole continued. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity is no longer prey. Tell them we've learned to fight in dimensions they cannot perceive. And tell them that if they ever threaten our people again, we will visit their homeworld and teach them what true terror means." The surviving Kresh ships broke formation and fled, their FTL drives engaging in panic. Within minutes, the space around New Haven was empty except for the wreckage of 200 Kresh warships and the impossible ship that had destroyed them. The Archimedes turned toward the defense station. "Commander Mitchell, New Haven is secure. Your people are safe," Sarah found her voice. "Captain Cole, what are you?" There was a pause. Then Cole replied, his voice carrying pride and something darker. "We're what happens when the prey learns to hunt." The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 12 hours after the Battle of New Haven. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. their voices creating a chaos of sound that the translation system struggled to process. Fear hung in the air like smoke. High Arbiter Thelnock sat on his throne, his 6 arms trembling slightly. Before him, holographic displays showed footage of the battle. The impossible ship. The weapons that came from nowhere. The complete annihilation of a Kresh fleet that should have been unstoppable. "Order," Thelnock shouted, his voice booming through amplifiers. "We will have order!" The chamber slowly quieted. Species that had been shouting moments before now sat in tense silence, watching the displays replay humanity's victory over and over. "The human ambassador will address the council," Thelnock announced. Elena Vasquez walked into the chamber, but she was not alone. Beside her walked a human in a military uniform, his eyes carrying that strange, distant quality that several council members found unsettling. Behind them, a holographic projection flickered to life, showing the outline of the vessel that had destroyed the Kresh fleet. "Members of the Galactic Council," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. 3 days ago I stood in this chamber and was told that humanity was dimensionally blind, that we were primitives, that we had stumbled into FTL travel by accident. She paused, letting her words sink in. "You were wrong," murmurs spread through the chamber. The Yalthine philosopher who had coined the phrase dimensionally blind shimmered with colors indicating distress. "This is Captain Marcus Cole," Elena continued, gesturing to the man beside her, commander of the TDSS Archimedes, humanity's first 7th-Dimensional vessel. "Captain, please explain to the council what they witnessed." Cole stepped forward, his hands clasped behind his back in a military stance. "For 49 years, humanity has been exploring higher dimensional space. While your civilizations perfected 3-dimensional travel, we learned to navigate dimensions beyond your perception. The Archimedes exists partially in the 7th dimension, allowing it to move through space in ways that conventional physics cannot explain." A Zinthros scientist stood up, his voice shaking. "Impossible. We have studied dimensional theory for 3 million years. We know it is possible in theory, but the energy requirements alone are manageable," Cole interrupted, "if you approach the problem differently. You tried to force your way into higher dimensions through brute power. We learned to open doors gently. You saw dimensions as barriers to overcome. We saw them as spaces to inhabit." Elena pulled up more displays. Technical readouts, energy signatures, battle analysis. "The weapons you witnessed are called dimensional shear projectors. They fire projectiles through higher dimensional space, allowing them to bypass shields and armor by traveling through angles that do not exist in 3-dimensional reality." The chamber erupted in panicked voices. Representatives shouted questions, accusations, demands. Through it all, High Arbiter Thelnock sat frozen, staring at the data before him. "Silence," he roared finally. "Ambassador Vasquez, the Kresh Empire demands compensation for the loss of their fleet. They claim you attacked without provocation." Elena's expression hardened. "The Kresh attacked a civilian colony. They threatened to harvest our people for genetic experimentation. We defended ourselves with an illegal weapon," a Kresh representative shrieked. "You deployed technology that violates council regulations on dimensional manipulation." "Show me the regulation," Elena challenged. "Show me the law that says we cannot explore higher dimensions. There is none because no species ever managed to do it before." A strange sound echoed through the chamber. The ancient Kronos archive, a sealed vault at the heart of the council station, was opening. The last time it had opened was 2,000 years ago. Council historians moved toward it, their expressions confused. "The archive has detected relevant information," one of them announced. "From the precursor database, the precursors. The first civilization, extinct for 5 million years. They had built the council chambers, left behind databases of knowledge, and vanished without explanation. Their warnings and predictions were considered sacred by all species." The historian pulled up an old file, its data structure ancient and complex. When the translation appeared, the chamber fell completely silent. "Beware the young race that looks inward before outward," the text read. "We searched the stars and found emptiness. They will search reality and find doors we dared not open. When they emerge, the balance of all things will shift. They will either save the galaxy or doom it depending on how they are welcomed." Elena felt her heart racing. The precursors had known. Somehow 5 million years ago they had predicted humanity's discovery. "They warned about us," Cole said quietly. "They knew someone would eventually find what they found. They chose not to share that knowledge because they feared what would happen if the wrong species learned these secrets. Thelnox stood from his throne, his 6 arms shaking with rage and fear. You have upset the balance of power that has kept peace for millennia. You have introduced weapons that make our defenses obsolete. The Zinthros Confederation demands that you share this technology immediately, or we will consider it an act of war. Elena's laugh was cold. You will consider it an act of war? You who just denied us recognition, you who assigned us to servitude in Kresh space. You dare to threaten us? 1 ship, Thelnox said, though his voice lacked conviction. You have 1 ship. The Confederation has 10,000 vessels. We can overwhelm even your impossible technology through sheer numbers. Cole smiled, and there was no warmth in it. Would you like to test that theory, High Arbiter? He pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The chamber's sensors went mad. Space around the council station began to shimmer and tear, and through those tears, something massive began to appear. The Archimedes materialized first, hovering impossibly inside the council chamber itself. It had passed through the station's shields as if they did not exist. Its presence inside the sealed chamber should have been impossible, but then more ships appeared. Not inside the chamber, but surrounding the station. 39 more vessels, each one similar to the Archimedes, each one existing in dimensions that made the council's sensors scream in confusion. The Archimedes was our prototype, Elena said softly. Our proof of concept. We built 39 more while you laughed at us, while you called us primitive, while you assigned us to mining operations and servitude. Cole highlighted each ship on the display. The TDSS Newton, the Tesla, the Hawking, the Curie, the Einstein, the Feynman, named after our greatest minds, the humans who taught us to see beyond the obvious. 40 ships total, High Arbiter, each one capable of defeating any fleet you can assemble. The representative stared in horror at the displays. 40 impossible ships, 40 vessels that could appear anywhere, strike from nowhere and pass through any defense. The balance of power had not just shifted, it had been completely destroyed. How long? The Yelthine philosopher asked, her colors showing deep shock. How long have these ships existed? 20 years, Elena replied. For 20 years they have been orbiting our homeworld, hidden in folded space. Invisible to every sensor array in the galaxy, we could have revealed them at any time. We could have conquered you at any time, but we didn't want conquest. We wanted partnership. We wanted to be recognized as equals. She looked directly at Thelnox. You offered us slavery instead. You laughed at our request for recognition. You assigned our people to work under species that threatened to harvest them like animals. And when we defended ourselves, you dared to call our weapons illegal. What do you want? Thelnox asked, and for the first time his voice carried no arrogance. Only fear. Elena's smile was sharp. We want what we asked for 3 days ago. Class 2 civilization status, a permanent seat on the Security Council, and a new treaty that recognizes human sovereignty over our territory. And if we refuse? A Kresh representative asked weakly. Cole's expression was ice. Then the next council session will be held in Earth's orbit, and you will arrive as guests, not as rulers. The chamber fell silent. Every species present understood the threat. Humanity had not just built weapons. They had transcended the fundamental limits that bound all other civilizations. They could appear anywhere, strike anywhere, defend anything. The council will vote, Thelnox said finally, his defeat clear in his voice. The vote was unanimous. Every species, even the Kresh, voted to grant humanity everything they had asked for. Not because they wanted to, because they were afraid. As Elena and Cole left the chamber, the ambassador allowed herself a small smile. They'll hate us now. They already hated us, Cole replied. They just called it contempt before. Now at least they'll respect us. Behind them, the Galactic Council began the work of reorganizing their entire political structure around a new reality. The age of the old empires was over. Humanity had not just joined the galactic community. They had revolutionized it. And in a secret facility deep in human space, Dr. James Chen watched the vote results and allowed himself a smile. He turned to the hangar behind him, where a ship 10 times the size of the Archimedes waited in darkness. Not yet, he whispered to the massive vessel. But soon. Let's hope they never give us a reason to finish you. The TDSS Einstein, humanity's 9th-dimensional experimental craft, remained silent in the shadows, waiting. The Zinthros Confederation had ruled the galactic core for 3 million years. Their empire had never known defeat. When the Council voted to grant humanity recognition, the Confederation's Grand Assembly gathered to discuss a response that would restore their dominance. "They have 40 ships," Grand Marshal Kethvorn announced to the assembled military leaders. 40 impossible ships, yes. But the Confederation commands 10,000 vessels. Mathematics favors us. The Grand Marshal was ancient even by Zinthros standards. His carapace bore the scars of 100 campaigns. He had conquered species more advanced than humanity. He refused to believe that dimensionally blind apes could truly threaten his empire. "We will mobilize the full Imperial fleet," he declared. "We will jump to Earth's solar system. We will surround their homeworld. And we will demonstrate that numbers always defeat novelty." Not everyone agreed. Several younger commanders argued for caution, for studying the new technology before engaging, but Kethvorn dismissed their concerns. The Confederation had never retreated. They would not start now. 3 days later, 10,000 Zinthros warships activated their FTL drives and jumped toward humanity's home system. On Earth, alarm sirens wailed across every continent. Defense satellites detected the massive fleet appearing at the edge of the solar system, their numbers so vast that they blocked out stars. Every human who looked up at the sky knew what was coming. In the Dimensional Warfare Division headquarters, Dr. James Chen watched the displays calmly. Beside him, Ambassador Vasquez looked worried. 10,000 ships, she said. "Even with the 40 vessels we revealed, those numbers are irrelevant," Chen interrupted gently. He pulled up a communication channel. "Earth Defense Command to approaching Zinthros fleet. You are in violation of Galactic Council law. Withdraw immediately." Grand Marshal Kethvorn's image appeared on the screen, his 6 arms spread in a gesture of absolute confidence. "Humanity, you have defied the natural order. You have introduced chaos to a stable galaxy. The Confederation will restore balance. Surrender your dimensional technology and submit to our authority, or we will reduce your homeworld to ash." Chen smiled. It was not a nice smile. "Grand Marshal, you've made a critical error. You assumed the Archimedes was our only ship because that's all we showed the Council. You assumed the 40 vessels we revealed were our entire fleet because we allowed you to believe it. You should have asked yourself a simple question." "What question?" Kethvorn demanded. "If humanity could build 40 impossible ships in secret, what else might we be hiding?" Chen entered a command code. Across Earth's solar system, space began to tear. It started near Mars, then Venus, then Mercury, then in the asteroid belt near Jupiter's moons, in the orbit of Saturn, 40 locations across the system. Reality itself ripped open like fabric. Through those wounds, the true fleet emerged. The Zinthros sensors went mad trying to process what they were seeing. Not 40 ships. 40 more ships. 80 total vessels. Each one existing partially in 7th-dimensional space. Each one impossible. Each one deadly. But these ships were different from the Archimedes. They were larger, their geometries more complex, and they moved with a coordination that suggested a shared intelligence. "Meet the Hidden Fleet," Chen said softly. "Named after humanity's greatest scientific minds. The Newton class, the Tesla class, the Hawking class. Every ship we showed the Council was a first-generation design. These are our second-generation vessels. They've been orbiting Earth for 2 decades, invisible to every sensor in the galaxy." On the bridge of his flagship, Grand Marshal Kethvorn felt something he had not experienced in 2,000 years. Fear. "Impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence networks would have detected construction on this scale. Our spies would have reported. Your spies saw what we wanted them to see." Captain Cole's voice came through the channel. "Your intelligence networks monitored our public shipyards and found exactly what we wanted you to find. Standard vessels. Conventional technology. You never thought to look in folded space in dimensions you cannot perceive. The Hidden Fleet moved into formation. They did not attack. They simply positioned themselves around the Zinthros fleet, creating a geometric pattern that enclosed all 10,000 ships." "What are you doing?" Kethvorn demanded. "Creating a dimensional maze," Cole replied. "Your ships are now trapped in a 7-dimensional construct. You can try to fly in any direction you choose, but you will find that all directions lead back to where you started." Kethvorn ordered his fleet to retreat. 10,000 ships activated their engines simultaneously, fleeing in every direction. They flew for 10 minutes at full speed, And then they were back at the starting position, surrounded by the same impossible human ships. As I said, Cole continued, a maze. You exist in 3 dimensions of space. We've built a prison in 7 dimensions. You cannot escape because the exits exist in directions you cannot perceive. This is an act of war, Kethavorn shouted. No, Elena Vasquez said, her image appearing on the screen beside Chen. You brought 10,000 warships to our homeworld. You threatened to reduce Earth to ash. You declared war on us, Grand Marshal. We're simply demonstrating why that was a terrible mistake. One of the human ships moved closer to Kethavorn's flagship. It was the largest vessel in the hidden fleet, nearly 5 miles long. Its designation appeared on Zinthro sensors, TDSS Einstein. That ship, Chen said quietly, is our 3rd-generation prototype. It exists partially in 9 dimensions. We haven't finished building it yet. What you're seeing is about 60% complete, but even at 60% it could destroy your entire fleet in under 3 minutes. Cole's voice took on a harder edge. We could have done this at any time, Grand Marshal. We could have appeared in orbit over your homeworld and demanded your surrender. We could have conquered the Confederation, the Kresh Empire, the entire Galactic Council. We have weapons that make conventional warfare obsolete. We have vessels that can appear anywhere, strike from nowhere, and defend against anything. Then why didn't you? Kethavorn asked, genuine confusion in his voice. Because that's not who we are, Elena said simply. We didn't want to conquer the galaxy. We wanted to join it. We wanted to be partners with the species we found among the stars. We hoped for friendship, for cooperation, for mutual growth. She paused, letting her words sink in. But you offered us slavery. You assigned us to servitude. You attacked our colonies, and when we defended ourselves, you brought an armada to destroy our homeworld. You forced us to reveal what we had been hiding. Chen pulled up displays showing every human colony in the galaxy. We have hidden fleet elements near every human world. We've been protecting our people in secret for 20 years, not because we wanted to hide our strength, but because we hoped we would never need to use it. What do you want? Kethavorn asked, his earlier arrogance completely gone. Your unconditional surrender, Cole replied. You will withdraw your fleet from our system. You will recognize human sovereignty over all our territory. You will sign a non-aggression treaty that forbids any military action against humanity or our allies, and you will do it now, or we will demonstrate exactly what our weapons can do to your ships. The silence stretched for a long moment. Grand Marshal Kethavorn, conqueror of 100 worlds, ruler of 40,000 star systems, looked at the impossible ships surrounding his fleet and knew he had lost. The Confederation surrenders, he said quietly. We accept your terms. The dimensional maze dissolved. The Zinthros fleet found itself free to move again. They retreated quickly, their FTL drives engaging as they fled the solar system in disorder. As the last Zinthros ship vanished, Elena allowed herself to breathe. It's over. This part is over, Chen corrected. Now comes the hard part, building a real peace, sharing our knowledge carefully, teaching other species to see what we can see, without giving them weapons that could destroy us all. Cole's image appeared on their screens. The Council is calling for another emergency session. They want to negotiate a new treaty. The Treaty of Terra, they're calling it. Let them wait, Elena said. First we celebrate. For the first time in 80 years, humanity doesn't have to hide. We don't have to pretend to be less than we are. We can stand in the light and be seen for what we've become. Across Earth, people poured into the streets. They had watched the confrontation on their screens, holding their breath as 10,000 alien warships threatened their world. Now they danced and sang, celebrating not just survival but recognition. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy. In the weeks that followed, the Treaty of Terra was signed. Humanity agreed to share dimensional theory over a 100-year period, teaching other species the mathematics and physics they had discovered. But weapons technology would remain human for the foreseeable future. The galaxy would need time to adjust to this new reality. Some species welcomed the change. The smaller civilizations, the ones who had been dominated by empires like the Zinthros and Kresh, saw humanity as potential protectors. They negotiated alliances eagerly. Other species retreated into isolation, afraid of what humanity might become. The Yalthine in particular withdrew from council affairs, their philosophers struggling to reconcile their understanding of reality with what humans had achieved. But the galaxy could not ignore humanity anymore. They could not laugh at the dimensionally blind apes. Those apes had opened their eyes and seen beyond the veil of reality itself. 1 year after the Battle of New Haven, Dr. James Chen stood in a secret facility, looking at the massive, incomplete vessel that filled the hangar. The TDSS Einstein had grown since the Zinthros had seen it. Now at 80% completion, it pulsed with energy that made the air shimmer. "Will we ever finish her?" a young engineer asked. Chen thought about the galaxy outside, about the species that feared humanity and the species that courted favor. He thought about the balance they had achieved, the peace they had built on the foundation of overwhelming but restrained power. "I hope not," he said finally. "I hope we never give ourselves a reason to finish her. I hope the threat of what we could build is enough to keep the peace." The engineer looked confused. "But if we finished her, we would be truly unstoppable." "Exactly," Chen replied. "And that's why we must never finish. The moment we believe we're unstoppable is the moment we become what we fought against, the moment we become conquerors instead of defenders." He walked toward the exit, leaving the Einstein in her shadows. Let her remain incomplete. Let her be a reminder that we always have more to learn, more to discover. Let her be the door we choose not to open, because we're wise enough to know that some doors should remain closed. The young engineer watched him go, then turned back to the massive vessel. In the darkness, the Einstein seemed to pulse with potential, with possibility, with the promise of power beyond imagination. But humanity had learned a valuable lesson. Power without wisdom led to tyranny. Strength without restraint led to destruction. They had shown the galaxy what they could do. Now they would show the galaxy who they chose to be. Not conquerors, not destroyers, not tyrants. Just humans, dimensional explorers who had looked inward and found wonders, and who had chosen to use those wonders not to dominate, but to protect, not to rule but to stand as equals among the stars. The galaxy would never laugh at them again. But more importantly, humanity would never become the monsters that others had tried to make them. They had proven their strength. Now they would prove their wisdom. And in the spaces between dimensions, in the folded corners of reality that only human eyes could perceive, the hidden fleet kept watch. Silent, patient, ready, always ready.